Welcome to Good News on the Ground, and I am your host, the Reverend Lisa Work, here with my friend and co-host,
Reverend Bradley Matson. You're going to love today's program. So, although our program is called Good News on the Ground, I think you're going to hear just as much about good news being in the ground. So, we will be joined by the Reverend Barbara Hutchinson and her parish, St. Andrew's in Shippensburg, and the attached ministry known as Grace Place that happens right in the heart of Shippensburg. So, we've got a garden, we have a community center, all kinds of awesome things. She will be joined by the ministry's coordinator, Jessica Larkin, who is the coordinator and garden consultant for this exciting story. So let's go to the interview and hear more about what they have to say happening.
Well, we are so excited that today on Good News on the Ground, we have two fun people from the Grace Place in Shippensburg, the Reverend Barbara Hutchinson and Jessica Larkin. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. We're so happy to be here with you. Yay. Thank you.
So we are excited to learn what the Grace Place is and how it got started. So let's dive right in because we have lots to talk to you about.
Yes. Well, sure. Well, it started about 4 years ago. This is our fourth season. It started as a Shape by Faith project, which of course was the diocesan initiative to strengthen parish vitality and to notice what God is doing in the neighborhood. So we spent time and we walked around the neighborhood and we saw a lot. We saw a lot of despair and a lot of brokenness and a lot of trash and no green space and no place for children to play. And we know that 2/3 of the children get reduced or free lunch. We knew that it was a pretty desperate place. What we also saw God doing was building the foundation of something new that was coming. And so we suddenly have a family homeless shelter next door, and we have low-income housing across the street, and we have a group of both ministers and all sorts of people who were looking at how to address the idea of food insecurity, because we also had one of our 2 food pantries closed down. And so it was a community-wide problem. So we saw a lot of the foundations being built together, but nothing was being knit together. So these were kind of individual things happening. We also have a social work department in the building next to us as well, and they have a resource coalition. And so we began to think, well, this can't be God's dream. We wouldn't really define ourselves as affluent, but we are certainly affluent in terms of resources among our neighbors who don't. And so we really wanted to do something about that.
It's very interesting. You noticed what was happening and not happening in the neighborhood. And then it sounds like God gave you an invitation.
Well, it was, and it was to bring the neighborhood to wholeness and healing and a place of hope. And we knew we couldn't do it, and we knew that the Spirit could do it if we could be part of the glue that would begin to bind things together. And so we always knew that it would take the community to heal the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so what could our role be in making that happen and facilitating? And of course, we were blessed and still are that the diocese allows us to use the house, which is right next door to St. Andrew's, was previously the home of the administrator of the Episcopal home. And that was vacant because the home closed. And so we're really blessed. So suddenly, I had Chad say, "Hey, Barbara, what do you think we should do with that building next to St. Andrew's?" And I'm like, do I have some ideas? We have a few things in mind about that. So we invested. We hired Jessica right away as a garden consultant, and we created a community garden and 21 raised beds, some here and some in different, like 4 or 5 different sites around the town, and we began to grow vegetables. And that was how it began. It's emerged and morphed into something way beyond that. That's really very special and very holy and very much God's kingdom. And we've learned to follow the Spirit, which is like the coolest thing in the whole wide world. So,
and I think too, like one of the important things we did was we kept some green space.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things we noticed, right? There wasn't a space for kids to really play around and hang out and a safe space to do so. So rather than putting additional raised beds in, which you probably could put 4 in that space, if not even more. That was an intentional decision. So that way, there was a space for everyone and everyone can see themselves doing various activities at the same time.
Well, and we also put a gazebo up, which was
Yes.
great because that's the gathering place. So people now who live in the shelter, which of course is a difficult situation, it's a wonderful opportunity, but it's really difficult to live in community and live in community when you're under a very stressful condition. And so people hang out in the gazebo all of
All
the
the time.
time. So it gives them a gathering place, a safe space, a place to be out and see the beauty of the garden because we all know that heals.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge thing, and we have kids playing in the green space all of the time, and it's their place. So we began in fact, the very first summer we began it Shippensburg is a cool little town in that they have a fair, like many people do, many towns do, but it opens with a church service, which is a really cool thing. So every year I'm a part of this church service, and that one year it was actually Ford Brooks, who is now a deacon. He was invited to speak about Grace Place. And he said very clearly, this is your garden, so come. And people came. So it's not a community garden where people get a plot and get to work it. It's a community garden that anybody at all can come and harvest, can come plant, can come water, can anything at all. And people believed us. And that really surprised us that trust came so early on. And we've now seen life in the garden move from this is your garden to this is a garden where we all belong. And that's a fundamental shift because it shows we have been transformed. Like we have found a place of belonging that we didn't even know was possible. One that you might expect and hope for at church inside the building, which I think is true. But this is being formed outside our church. So we've taken the essence of the church outside the walls and it has created something beyond imagination. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. Yeah.
Barbara, Barbara and Jessica, one of the things that I think would be helpful for those folks that have not visited Grace Place or maybe from our immediate diocese and know about Grace Place. I remember when you presented this to presiding Bishop Curry when he visited.
Gosh, yeah.
I remember when you sort of explained how you share the good news by reimagining the physical space and the orientation of the buildings and how you created that green space. I also remember, and I'll have to figure out what you did with it, because you talked about how you planted arugula. And one of the questions was, you had to pray, like, what, Lord, show us what we can do with all that arugula. Before this is over, I want to know, I want all of our listeners and watchers
Where's
to know
the arugula?
what did you do with all that arugula? Maybe could you just tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about the space and how God called you into that space to share the story of Jesus and what did you do with all that?
Well, one of the things we did just start out, it was in May and we had the beds in and the bishop was coming to bless them. We bought tiny little plants and stuck them in to look like we knew what we were doing. And off they went. And so we've learned a lot and shared a lot. And as Bradley will know from our conversations in the Agrarian Ministry Certificate course, that we followed the principles of permaculture. And so it's very diverse and very sustainable. But we started with this land. And I remember standing there and suddenly having the awareness, of course, we'll have ministry here. I mean, Bill Murphy lived in that house and prayer has happened and Mary Grace lived in the house and prayer is all through this. It's in the soil, it's in the stories, it's in the land.
I love
And
that.
so we started laying out these beds and then we realized we could put them in the shape of a cross. And so this is what we actually got our Shape by Faith grant for.
Yeah.
So there's a brick going through the beds arranged so that the beds are on either side of them. And we have a fountain in the middle, which if you are a Christian and you come by and you say, wow, there's a cross. And there's a fountain that looks like a chalice that actually reminds us of our baptism because water is spilling out. Now, if you're not a Christian and not have that orientation, you'll say, what a beautiful place. It's inviting me to come and sit and be quiet and soak up the goodness of creation. So however your orientation might be, it's a place to invite you into that. So we knew that the good news can be feeding people. What I've been saying recently is what we do is not extraordinary, but what the essence of how it happens is the extraordinary. So
Amen.
lots of people have community gardens, lots of people hand out food boxes, lots of people cook meals for other people. But there's a quality here that is so holy and so sacred that people see. So I'm going to ask Jessica to tell a story she shared last night at our discernment committee around meeting people in that very liminal time, like first thing in the morning or at the evening when she often comes to water or tend to the garden.
Yeah, so during this time, like Mother Barbara said, it's like I'll either water super early in the morning or sometime after 3, because during this hot season and when the sun is shining down, plants don't really favor water being splashed on them. And so a gentleman who has deep connections to our CARES family, the shelter next door, he was just sitting down and kind of hanging out, which a lot of people do. And so we just got to talking and he just said, this is where truth is. This is truth.
And,
Yeah.
and that's a pretty profound thing that people who may not come from any religious background can identify that the truth with a capital T, the truth of God lives here.
They experience it there.
They do. And it's partly the beauty, it's partly watching things grow, it's partly our radical hospitality, it's partly our desire to be changed by it. Like, I think sharing the good news changes us, or it should change us. And so we as people and we as a parish are radically different, because suddenly the energy, this aliveness with the spirit that's happening at Grace Place is coming back into our parish, which is revitalizing our parish, which is sending us out as apostles, which is renewing us as apostles outside and bringing us back in. So we get to be apostles the whole time. Like, whether we're in church or whether we're at Grace Place, we're being renewed so we can share the good news of Grace Place in the church and the good news of Grace Place, of the church in Grace Place. We've just realized this cyclical part of grace.
And in the beginning, that wasn't something really on the radar.
No.
Right? It's like we will give, right? Like what we have, we will be sent outward. But then it just transformed into, right? Like we are actually the ones who are being healed. We are the ones also receiving. And that, like Mother Barbara said, just continues to nourish, continues to spread the goodness throughout.
And we started, and we have the garden outside, and then we have the house. And so we renovated, and the diocese was very good to us, and helped us with those capital improvement expenses. And so we were able to, and started, we have free mental health counseling from the Shippensburg University. And then upstairs, we had an organization that gave out free clothing and household goods. So basically, you could come into the shelter with nothing but clothes on your back. You could come and get free mental health counseling, free food, free clothing, free household goods when you begin to reestablish your life. And so that's what we thought healing was. And we had the opportunity to give out a lot of food boxes in the beginning. And then this kind of goes to your second question, like, when things go wrong, what do you do? And so we were giving out like 150 boxes of food every week. But then that program stopped in a way that we could receive it. We could only receive pallets, and we can't do that in an old Victorian house. And so we realized, luckily, this is the cool part, because right before that program ended, before we knew it would end, God is putting on our hearts, well, it's good to hand out boxes, but we want to be in relationship. That's the healing. Healing is food, but it's also, how do you build relationships? So we started having coffee and conversation, and some people came. They would get their box, and then they'd come over and sit and talk with us for a while. But it just shows you that God is always out ahead of us. So then we were doing this and building these relationships, and the food stops, the food boxes stop, but the relationships don't. And so now every day, every week, we make a free breakfast for everyone. And so the community begins to build and relationships are formed. And the coolest thing in the whole wide world is, for several years we've been doing these breakfasts, and it was us showing up with everything organized. You know me, Bradley, well enough, and I have everything prepared and everything's ready to dish out, and here we go.
I appreciate that about you, Barbara. I do.
But the thing that was great, then suddenly we couldn't do that. I had things to do, and a couple other people had things to do. And guess what happened? People from the neighborhood saw the space. So now people from the neighborhood are cooking the meals, and they're cleaning up, and they're setting up the tables, and they now are doing it with us, that they have taken full ownership So the line between host and guest has
Right.
evaporated. If you
Interesting.
walked in any time on a Tuesday morning, you wouldn't know who St. Andrew's members are and who the members of the neighborhood are. That's the beloved community.
Yeah, and
That's what we work toward.
the most beautiful part is it's intergenerational, it's multicultural, it's all diverse backgrounds, and people are just jumping in. And I think like our main chef at the moment he's 12 years old, going
Yeah.
on 13. He is rock star, absolutely
Oh,
rock
yeah.
star,
Oh,
and now
yeah.
he's training people up. Yeah, he's amazing, absolutely amazing.
And he was someone who had lived at the
At the
shelter, and
shelter.
so people are coming back who live at the
Mhm.
shelter, who have lived at the shelter and gone on, and so it's a time of beautiful awareness of what belonging really looks like, and for us to be aware of how much we are healed by it, even though you didn't know you need to be healed. You think you're pretty much together, like kind of do.
Yeah.
And then you start really being in relationship with people who initially feel very different than you. I mean, they have very different lives than I do. I've very privileged life in comparison to the people in our neighborhood. And that doesn't seem to matter to them. And it doesn't matter to me. And so somehow we've been able to find that place. So the good news is that we have been able to take the love of Christ and make it real in the garden. Sometimes that is through laying hands on people and praying. And sometimes it's long pastoral conversations. And sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's just simply showing up. Sometimes it's offering beauty so people can, you rest when you're so, I mean, they have no rest. They have no rest in their life, but they can sit and listen to the fountain, and they're different. And so it's, we've struggled and worked hard at finding a line between how explicitly we want to share that this is a church adventure, and it is an adventure. It's
You
always
never
an
know.
adventure because we're in the spirit, so it's crazy.
Uh-huh.
But, like, do we go out? Like, do I wear my collar? Do we make this evident that it's a church? Do people know it? People know all the time. And they say, oh, yeah, that's your church over there. And so we're becoming we are responding more to the invitation in the community that that's okay. We can have a prayer station. We can say, hey, would you like me to pray with you? Because that's what people really want too. But we needed to develop that trust so that people were open and ready for that rather than be, I don't know, too bold in a way. I mean, obviously, some people are hurt by churches, and we want it to be really sensitive to that. And so we're finding, so it's the community that's inviting us into that, of figuring ways that they actually want ritual that includes prayer and blessing, that they know the love of Christ because they know us. That's really so we're still working on that line. We had a meeting last night and we talked about how we could gather prayers. Like, people would want prayers. Like, we shouldn't be shy about saying, may I pray for you? I've never said that to anyone in the neighborhood who has said no. Like, well, of course, could you pray for that? And so that's our learning curve of how to be bold. We've been bold in our love, but how to also be bold in our words and our actions when people have a sense of desire for that. But we've we've moved from what is God doing to what wants to happen here. That's the only, like, I'm
Mhm.
so excited. Like, we do not need a strategic plan
No, which
because we have learned how to discern. What does the Spirit want to happen here? And if we know that, that's all we ever need to know.
and a lot of that is the listening, right? The honest
Oh,
and true
yeah.
listening. Yeah,
I
which is
love that what y'all are saying, because what I hear is that this is not a transactional thing.
no.
We
Absolutely.
only give you something if you listen to this, or if you come to this, or if you do this. It's very much an outflowing of the grace
Mhm.
you've received and the abundance of that you all have to the community.
Absolutely.
It's made it not only a place of grace, but a safe place for the
Very.
people in the community.
It is, and we've always understood when we've been doing community meals for 15 years or so. And when that began, or certainly sometime since I've been here, that there was an awareness that the meals we offer on Monday are actually an extension of the altar on Sunday. And so it's sacramental. And so when we always understood that there was something different, that we can give food, but it's the relationship and the healing and the grace that continues to flow from the altar. And that's very much how we look at Grace Place. Like, it's totally ground is all I can say. And we have been invited into this space and this time and this way of being. Like, I can't even call it a ministry. Our
We're
biggest struggle
discussing that.
right now is like none of the words fit. I mean, of course, this is also why I don't get grants, because we don't fit in any box. So, like, how do you explain this to somebody? Well, you can't.
Oh,
But like, even the word ministry isn't right, because that still implies we're doing something for someone.
some.
Sounds like you're just doing life with your neighborhood to me.
Well, and it's more than
Yes.
life, it's loving, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's
it's life
loving
done
life.
with love and with no just complete acceptance of wherever you are.
Yeah,
And I think that's where people really respond, and we respond back.
what we do. And
Beautiful.
because we often talk, I refuse to use the word outreach because I don't think that's appropriate.
Mhm.
And once again, it's like, I have something I'm giving to you. And then that's so not true. We are giving of each other. But so I've been using community engagement. And even now that feels like there's some space that we don't want even in our language. So we're struggling with, how do you talk about this in a way that seems to make sense to other people? What language, like, sometimes I have to translate it to other people, and that's fine. But for us, it's a new way of being that I
Community.
none of
Yeah.
us could ever have expected.
Yeah, and it's like that active engagement and it continuously trying to create that beloved community, right? And so I think then that really is what it is. And even trying to figure out they're not like we're not neighbors. Because
Yeah.
as when we're in this space and how we're so part of each other's lives, it's really family. 4 years and 4 seasons into this now, it's like we are family. And now it's generational because those who end up leaving the shelter while they're like in that transition phase, they bring the next families who are coming in and they show them the ropes, they bring them over and they invite them into this space. So now it's intergenerational, which is so family related. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful.
Bradley, I'm doing a lot of talking, so I'm going to let you ask a question.
So, I'm really struck as I hear about the intergenerational aspects,
Yeah.
Mhm.
people of all ages who are sort of coming together, and your rock star chef is 12 years old. Did I hear that
I
right?
love
Yeah.
that.
He's
So
so excited because we just did breakfast burritos. He's like, I can work at Taco Bell now.
how about it? I mean, I just think that, ministry to youth, with youth, and people of all ages together in one place is just that is also beloved community. It's, as I recall, this place, Grace Place, has, as especially in the garden, has been a place where you've really been able to worship with your community and your family. And I know I would keep bringing up food. First, it was arugula cookies, right?
Cookie
Do I
Church.
do I remember you have something called Cookie Church? I think people really need to hear about this because there's so many
Mhm.
questions. How do we do something like this for young people and with young people? And you're doing it. Can you say more?
Well,
Yeah.
sure. So we began Cookie Church actually intended for the children in our parish. And Cookie Church is a church, it's a Eucharistic service that is designed for children, which means we use some language that is more appropriate for children, but it has the same structure as our Sunday service. Plus, they do everything. I mean, I
Yes.
consecrate the bread and wine, but other than that, they break the bread, they serve the chalice, and the engagement is so powerful. And so, and of course, they get cookies at the
Yeah.
end. So that's why we call it Cookie Church. So who wouldn't want to
Yeah.
do that? But
I'm
we
in.
mainly have said, really, we got to learn from that, folks. And so, but we do it in the garden. And so, and then that brings the neighborhood children in. And so there's no better place. Well, that's my opinion. Let me rephrase. It's a wonderful thing to learn about God and to experience God in God's creation. So as we're singing songs and as we're sharing the Eucharist and doing activities, and we can tie it into obviously the parables about harvesting or sowing, there's so many activities that you can really connect. But it was so much fun. And then the neighborhood children would start to come in. And so that was an interesting dynamic because it takes everybody a sense of moment to figure this out. Now it
Sure.
doesn't look like what I thought it might look like, and here are people I don't know who are doing what I'm doing. How does that feel? And so, but of course, children are much more open to this than some adults can be, and so they kind of went with
Mhm.
the flow of all of that. And so we do worship there. We've had, and so the young kids know that it's a safe place. So we have multiple events, largely that we collaborate with the shelter next door
Mhm.
for our children.
Okay.
And it's very it's holy ground is the best way to say it, but we've also had an ecumenical Thanksgiving service here where we had all the churches worship at Grace Place,
Nice.
and so there's that piece, and we've had the best way for me to talk about this, and I'm using this example when I make my plea to the Council of Trustees for an extension of the lease, is that we've had an Easter egg hunt for the last 4 years that have involved children in the neighborhood. So the first year they come in and we have a couple families and they stand in the parish hall in their own little group, not knowing what to do. No one of our parish really talking to them, having two separate groups of children. We unfortunately we had to have it inside that year because it rained. So we ring the bell and off they go, and then the families disappear and go back to the shelter. So that's what happened 4 years ago. This past year, we invited them. First of all, we dyed eggs with the children outside with natural plant material. So they were all keyed up that we're going to
Mhm.
use these eggs. I was the biggest, wildest mess and the crazy thing. It was fabulous.
Wow.
And so they already knew what to expect, and they'd see some of these eggs show up and all of this kind of stuff. So they showed up, I don't know, it seemed like at least 20
At
family.
least
I mean,
20.
it was the parish, and luckily we had a buffet brunch for everybody. So they came in and they were like, "Oh, look." And we're like, "Oh, have something to eat." We all sat down. We all ate together. Everybody was just like one
Family.
family. Then they all went outside. We rang a bell and they just had the best time being together. So that's the shift. And that's really the most concrete example I can talk
Yeah.
about. That's good news.
Mhm.
Kids, the shelter gets tons of offers to do Easter egg hunts. Everybody wants to do things at
Yeah.
Christmas and things like that. But this was special because it's on their ground.
Yeah.
It's not you have to come
Yeah.
into my church, you have to come to church first. It wasn't that at all. Some did, some
Mhm.
do. But by the same token, we did it together. And the fact that they were just sitting
There
together
was
and
some
laughing and enjoying and
sudden
knew each other. Like,
yeah.
this isn't strangers. These are no longer strangers. These are people they've seen and they played with out in the garden.
Mhm.
So that's a remarkable shift. I mean, it really is seeing the kingdom emerge before our very eyes and know that we're an important part of it, that we don't make it happen. It's the spirit that does, but we have to do our part and we want to gladly. And
Love it.
to see how it has shaped our parish. Now we pray for we began with a Shape by Faith prayer that we pray every single Sunday, and that has been powerful. And we've changed it over time because the prayer has changed from exploring to doing and this and that. And now we call it a prayer of commission because, of course, we're all commissioned to go out and make disciples and preach the good news. And so Jessica often is invited to do the prayer of commission for us in the worship service. And the fact that we pray for it every single week makes a
Together.
difference.
I love that because what I hear the shift that's happened within your church is that people went from being spectators to participants.
Mm,
And then it sounds like that shift also caused a shift in the community because the participant was becoming part of the beloved community, the community of Shippensburg and the Grace Place. And so it's not us and them, it's us all
Really is.
together.
Yeah, and it's also finding ways like the mindset is, well, how can we knit each other together, right? How can we always keep this circle going? So how can we include everyone? And then, there's a response back. So really everything is now always in the mindset of how do we do this together? St. Andrew's Parish and our neighbors here at Grace Place.
And even if people aren't over there, they certainly know about it because I talk about it all
Yeah.
the time and we pray about it all the time. But it really has shaped that openness within them to open their hearts. Like things are bubbling up because of what we do in the garden.
In the show notes, there'll be a link to some photos of Grace Place and the exciting things and some information where you can learn more that you can reach out to Barbara and Jessica, because perhaps God is inviting you to do something similar where you are. And I am sure that Barbara and Jessica would be happy to share how they held on for dear life in this process at
Yeah.
times. It's exciting. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Wow, that was an amazing interview. And quite honestly, we probably could have talked for another hour. What do you think, Bradley?
I think we could have. There's so many amazing things going on. I love how the whole neighborhood comes together. I love how it's like a family. I love the inclusion of children. I mean, so many things that we can take home and think about doing ourselves.
I love the fact that it all started from noticing what God was already doing in the neighborhood and how God was already at work. It wasn't making something happen. It was joining God with what had already started. It was pretty amazing.
Really something.
It's what we're about here on Good News on the Ground, that you start small, you start joining God where God is already at work, and then God does the work and we just join in. So we hope that you join us next time on Good News on the Ground. So what I loved about this is that it was about them showing up, noticing where God was already at work in the neighborhood, and joining God in the work. And isn't that what evangelism is all about? Showing up and paying attention, Bradley?
It sure is. It sure is. And they clearly have their eyes open and their hearts open and their physical space is open to the community. I just think it's very inspiring. And a lot we can take home too, which I think is the best part.
Absolutely. And so friends, we hope that you go forth and that you are good news on the ground in your words, in your work, and in your witness. Thank you.
God bless.